And imagine that right now, every leader in the Democratic Party is denouncing Trump for sending in the National Guard. So stick with me here. National Guard should not be showing up to a riot. Hell no. Time was you could burn a few cop cars, fire a few mortars, loot a few Apple stores, help yourself to some free sushi, and the National Guard should mind its own damn business. But do you know what happened when 40 migrants showed up on a bus in Martha's Vineyard? The Democrats called in the National Guard.
Oh, wow!
Shipped them off to a military base less than 24 hours after they got there. Now, Martha's Vineyard's one of those pretentious enclaves. Number one, is one of the richest vacation resorts in the world. Like, Martha's Vineyard is so white and elite that they call the cops on Obama when he goes jogging. He's like, hell, damn, they got me again. But the point is, Martha's Vineyard was one of those pretentious enclaves that had the sign up. You know the sign? In this town, no human being is illegal. We should be building bridges, not walls. And then 40 migrants showed up, and they weren't there 24 hours, and all the no human beings are illegal. We should be building bridges, not walls. Suddenly the frame became,
get him out of here. Get him out.
Shipped them right off to a military base, and even had a tearful goodbye. Oh, it's so sad. We can't have you here. Even though the average cost of a home is $8.2 million. Remember they fed them no-frills cereal? Do you remember those photo ops where the Democrats were with the migrants in Martha's Vineyards and they were eating like the fake cornflakes? It was Biden. They were eating corn pop flakes.
Corn Pop was a bad dude.
And they're like, you gotta go. And it's all straw man garbage when they're in power. I always talk about walking through the mall. You know when you're walking through the mall, Lululemon has the sign, in this store, we don't tolerate racism or bigotry or homophobia. And I'm like, great, Lululemon. I love how you say this, as if there's this other store on the other side of the mall that's like, we are your racism and bigotry headquarters. Like, hello, it's not going on. We're the most tolerant and inclusive society in the history of the world. And to be clear, the only reason we are eroding the quality of life in this country is because we started in the age of social media to cater to the people who make the most noise.
He knows what he's talking about.
Some of you might know this. I'm broadcasting on a new station this week, 710 WOR, The Talk of New York. Hey, girl. So weird being on like New York City radio as a former cab driver. Some of you have been in my car. Some of you I owe money to from my gambling days. Well, some of you I can't make eye contact with because I owed money in my gambling days and you met me behind Port Authority and we worked it out.
I love it when you talk dirty.
I'm being silly. But the point is, if you didn't know this about me, I wrote a New York Times bestselling book called Cancel Culture Dictionary. And the whole premise of the book is social media in the outrage era recalibrated our societal compass to focus more on what people say than what people do. That became the thing. You dig? And when we put words and we equated them to actions and we said speech is violence, you are allowing the people who committed the awful deeds to escape accountability. There was a time when we were attacking comedians because of jokes they made about like murderers. And lo and behold, I got to be honest, you're better off living in an America where we're madder at the murderer than we are at the actual comedian.
When you're right, and you're right.
So many dumb examples, but let me just give you this, and then we will get into some of these media reactions that I just love. And the reason I love them, just so we're all on the same page, is I got into this job as a cab driver who went to community college, and I've said this before, I was very self-conscious about hosting a national show. I was like, these people in the media are media people. They studied journalism. They're so much smarter than me.
Not even close.
But I didn't know that until I worked in the media every day and got to look around and meet these people at cocktail parties. I thought these people were like the smartest people among us. They were bargaining in good faith. They were journalists. They really were chasing down the truth and trying to hold people in power accountable. I really thought that.
You must have got manure for your brains.
Vacation. You must have got manure for your brains. Yeah, apparently. Okay, here is a Fox 11 LA broadcast of an LA small business owner explaining what's happening to the small business owners. Clip 6.
There were reports, Sheila, of up to 100 looters at a time at a jewelry business.
Crazy. Very crazy, very sad, very terrible.
And your dad works really hard. I'm sure you work really hard, too. This is a small family-owned business, and there's no insurance.
No.
How is this going to affect your family?
Really bad. Really bad. People are stupid. What can you do?
People are stupid. What can you do? My family-owned business has no insurance. It's gone now. They destroyed it. Does anybody actually, I don't know, go fund a rebuild?
The answer would be no.
The answer would be no. Go look at the near north of Minneapolis after the George Floyd protests. So we watched that on TV for 2 weeks. Then the movie cameras moved on. And you know what stayed behind? All of the urban blight. People don't give out business loans in areas that have been burnt to the ground by civil unrest. And that's the part of this that drives me so crazy. Is I'm new enough to media that I still care. And when I see the politics come ahead of the people, it's the one thing that really gets to me and tells me I could never make it in politics. I mean, I'm never going to make it in politics. I couldn't pass the background check. If they saw the things I was doing in my 20s, oh, God, we lost a lot of good men out there. And by out there, I mean Mulcahy's and Wantor. Or Coco's in Huntington. Shout out to Mark Simone. Mark Simone was a Coco's in Huntington guy. But hold on a second here. Okay, when I see the lack of empathy for the law-abiding citizen, because that's what defund the police was. That's what all of these woke bail initiatives were. It's like, we got to go easier on the criminal here. Society is configured in a way that makes them more likely to commit crimes. Guys, here's a newsflash. Over 90% of violent crimes are committed against members of the same race. So you are not protecting black people or Latino people or white people or Asian people or Muslim people by letting the violent criminals amongst them off the hook, because the high rate of criminal recidivism means they are that much more likely to go out and harm another member of the same race. Okay, you listen to that LA small business owner. Who is she? Latino. And a Latino is being harmed by illegal immigrants. But what's so fascinating about this moment is as all of this plays out, the people who moved into this country legally are overwhelmingly voting for Trump. Why? Because they know Trump isn't anti-immigration. He just wants legal immigration. And people who waited in line, paid their dues, filled out the forms, and took 8 or 9 years are furious that they just threw open the doors of the country, started handing out debit cards, allowing people to book airfare on the CBP One app, and shipping them up here to New York so they could hang out outside the Roosevelt Hotel on 46th Street and turn all types of hooker tricks in between red lights. I wish I was making it up, but I'm not. I mean, it's still going on right now. But you dig, if you look at the trust on immigration, in 2020, when Donald Trump was running for re-election, Democrats had a plus 32 advantage on the issue of who we trust more on immigration. 32-point advantage. The GOP now leads the Democrats by 8 points. That is a 40-point swing on the issue. People now trust Trump more. The net favorability of immigrants here illegally. Do you understand? In 2020, before Biden got into office, they had a plus 23 net favorability, meaning people in this country, if you polled the country in 2020, they didn't care that they were here illegally. Why? Because there weren't that many of them. Okay, fast forward to 2024, it's now minus 6 points. That is a 29-point swing towards the GOP position on immigration. Why? Because Joe Biden opened the borders and let in 21 million people.
Biden is such a disaster.
Including 1,000 members that we know of on the terror watch list. Now, where I'm broadcasting from is New York City, a place you were all watching on September 11th, 2001. And if somebody had told you on September 11th, 2001, in the aftermath of what we all witnessed, that an American president was going to come along, let 21 million people cross the border unvetted including 1,000 members of the terror watch list that we know of, just known terrorists who aren't allowed to board a plane legally ever again, are now let into this country under that president, you'd consider it an actual treasonous act.
He should be behind bars.
Guys, I mean this. If you would have said that after September 11th, behind bars would have been a best case scenario for the guy, an absolute best case scenario. And the idea that they've been that derelict in their duty to protect us is so disgusting because they're not even pretending that our tax dollars should go towards something like that. What do you mean? National Guard's coming in. That inflames tensions. Guys, remember this. No matter how they try to manipulate context on TV, well, it's peaceful. It's mostly peaceful. Other than the car on fire behind me, the ransacking of the Apple store and the rocks they're throwing at the cops, and excuse me, I got to move. There's mortar fire coming in. But once you get past that, it's mostly peaceful. They can frame it that way. But what ICE is doing is legal. What Donald Trump is doing is legal. They are attempting to enforce the laws. And they're trying to tell you rioting and the destruction of property is justified in an effort to stop the enforcement of the very laws that are on the books. And if you're the guy that's out there tonight throwing the rock or shooting off the mortar in downtown LA, you're not a protester, you're not a Democrat, you're not an activist, you're not a member of the resistance, you are an hole. We got riots out in California. All kinds of civil unrest here in New York City. Alex Padilla apparently arrested after being thrown out of Kristi Noem's press conference. And I know what everyone listening is saying to themselves, this is a good time for Jimmy to book a comedian.
Yeah, of course.
This
gotta lighten the mood.
This is when you book the comedian, is when the world is absolutely on fire. So joining us now is the one man who can put it out, Danny Polishchuk.
Hey!
In the house, the crowd goes wild. Good to see you.
How you been?
You know what, man? I am in good spirits. There's no excuse if you're listening around the country not to get your dad a good present this Father's Day because they're looting everything.
I know.
It's like...
What, you don't have a Foot Locker or a Target near your house? You're just lazy.
Screw that restaurant gift card. They're looting sushi places in Los Angeles. That was
just
the one.
Walking out with half a bluefin tuna.
You know, I can kind of square that. Like if we were doing one of those segments where you have to defend like the indefensible, because you're like, how are they showing their support of the Mexicans by robbing the Japanese?
Sure.
But there is avocado in a California roll.
That's true.
Is there anything more California than a stolen California roll? That's crazy.
Good point.
It's the dumbest time there's ever been to be alive. And I've been having some fun this week. It's obviously our debut week on 710 WOR, the Talk of New York. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
And you took it with the biggest station and the biggest market. We actually have to get it together and do a good interview today, which we never did. But, you know, today.
We always do a good one. What do you mean?
We do just fine.
What do you mean?
It's all a confidence scheme. It has to be just a confidence scheme. So I've been playing clips all week of like, you know, little takes. Probably my favorite one is, Brian Stelter has two good ones, but my favorite one is, it's on Sunday. There's literally like mortar fire going off in the background, and he tries to make the point that, you know, it's only a few blocks. Most of LA is having a perfectly normal day.
Sure.
You could even convince me that's true, but you can't make the scale argument if the one thing that is happening on those few blocks is bad.
Yeah.
Meaning as New Yorkers, we couldn't come on the air on September 11th and go, it's only two buildings.
Yeah.
Guys, I hate to break it
downtown.
to you. Yeah, I hate to break it to you. We're over here on 47th and 6th. They're down there on Christopher Street and Broadway. You know, that
Can't
whole
even
thing.
smell the fumes.
Come on, guys. And I've been playing these clips, and I get such a laugh out of it because you know this. You do a lot of TV. You're on our show next week.
Yep.
Guys, if you want to know something, because I always tell you things on the radio before you hear about them on TV, because this radio audience, I've met them. They have the highest security clearance in media. Danny is on next week with Rudy Rudinger.
Oh, I'm pumped.
From Rudy, from the movie Rudy.
That's great.
So we got to get a Rudy chant going.
Me and him are going to do some drills.
Yeah, we're going to do a tackling drill.
Wouldn't
it be funny if we book Rudy, but we won't put him in the game? You just have to stand.
That's actually pretty
That's
good.
what we're going to do.
Just
we're not
leave
actually going to put him
just
on.
leave him in the green room.
We're not putting him on now.
Put him in for one play.
Rudy comes in for one play. I love that. I'm actually making a note. And
he's like, I flew here from Indiana.
Yes, that would be so funny. But shout out to Rudy Rudinger, who will be on Fox News Saturday
Exciting.
night. Next Saturday night, June the 21st. But I always think about this. When people go on TV and say like really shamelessly dumb things, okay? They have time. Like they get hair, They get makeup.
Stelter's not getting hair. Calm down, all right?
Like, all right,
He's getting double makeup, no hair.
They're like, hey, can we get ranch down to set? Can someone send
craft services and makeup?
Can someone send makeup and ranch? That's funny as hell. But I'm going to give you a few of them. Stelter being my fave. This is the Stelter handful of buildings, and it'll be followed up by what I think is a better one. But here's clip 44.
On one level, protests are always about images, about spectacle. You might even say it's about theater. And we are seeing that play out in LA. And I think it's valuable to have that perspective as we see some of these pictures, especially as we zoom out and we recognize that the unrest is isolated, is not overtaking the entire city of LA. LA is home to millions of people. Most of whom are having a normal day here on Sunday.
Just like the fires. Yeah. Hey, the fires, not a big deal. They're just localized in just this one area. No big deal.
You know, everybody's crowing about the Titanic. It wasn't the only boat in the ocean that day.
You know how big the ocean is, Jimmy?
Come on, guys. Most boaters were having a relatively normal day.
Barbecuing.
Had a couple of drinks, little sit and sip. You know, wife number 2 with the fake hoodies. Hey. I've been to Florida. I know what goes on down there.
Oh, yeah.
I know what goes on. I've been to the Lake of the Ozarks, the LOZ.
Yeah.
People listening on KRMS right now. 80% of our audience in Ozarks is listening on a pontoon boat right now.
Oh, I love it.
And they've been on it and drinking for about 4 hours. What is it, 2? Yeah, out there. It's a midday out there.
By the way, you're like a quarterback with your knowledge of radio call signs.
Yeah, I know. KRMS, Omaha. But let me give you another one because I love this one. You know, I made this analogy yesterday. I was talking about in the movie I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker. It was a Wayne Spencer movie. It was a great movie. When the pimp gets out of jail, but he was away for like 12 years, so he walks out of jail wearing the old fashioned, and he thinks he looks like the baddest dude on the street in the fish tank pumps and the cape and the fur and the cane, and then he realizes people are laughing at him and catcalling, and he winds up getting robbed.
Yeah.
And I love the moment of recognition when he realizes, like, oh, I'm not cool for doing this anymore. So Eddie Glaude is on MSNBC yesterday, and he's trying to make the argument that ICE is a bunch of slave catchers. And that's why Republicans... And again, if you were to go back to the summer of George Floyd, you could say this and get like an applause break from the rest of the panel because everybody was trying to make the worst racist analogies they could.
And MSNBC has clearly not updated their playbook.
No, that's what I mean. So here's MSNBC getting out of jail with the fish tank pumps and the fur coat and the cape. Clip 35.
This reminds me historically of it's not a clear analogy, but when the nation, when these political factions divided the nation in between slave holders and slave catchers. When they made everybody with the fugitive slave law, all of us had to, if someone escaped, all of us had to return that particular piece of property to these folk. With ICE running around LA, forcing people to make choices. Will they protect their friends, their neighbors, their family members? Will they confront these folk and they're terrorized?
I mean...
Yeah, not a great analogy. Did those people come here against their own will?
I know, that's what I was going to say. It's so insulting. When they try to make these metaphors, like when you call somebody Hitler, it's so insulting to the victims of Hitler.
Of course. Donald
Trump's, chanting, build the wall. He's Hitler. I'm like, Hitler built worse things than walls.
Yeah.
But stick with me. When he says that, these migrants are here illegally. They came here willingly. They broke the law. The guys they're actually trying to track down are murderers and rapists. And they're trying to get them out of the country so law-abiding citizens can live their lives.
Also, Hispanics voted in record for Trump.
Overwhelmingly. Yeah. A 40-point swing amongst migrants in this country from Democrat to Republican in the last 4 years. I'll play you that clip as well. But the point is, it's so insulting to slaves to make it sound like they wanted this.
Yeah.
And but to take it a step further, and if a slave got out, we all had to round up the property. Are you chasing migrants right now? No. If I'm stopping a migrant, it's because the Yankees need a backup shortstop. Okay. Can you get on the subway heading north instead of south? Volpe can't hit anything.
Volpe's just...
doing nothing, man. Let me give you another one. Because I play these clips, I'm not even kidding. And as comedians, we're kind of self-conscious because we make fun of ourselves a lot.
Yeah.
And we're trying to highlight what we do wrong because that's where a lot of the humor lies.
Absolutely.
Okay.
A little honesty.
So
it's nice to have a little honesty.
Imagine. But when I got into media, specifically on this show, because I was like, wow, it's Fox News. So many people listen to Fox News. Wow. And you're like, I don't know if I'm smart enough to do what these other media people do. I know, but I really thought that for like an hour.
I'm not as smart as these talking heads on MSNBC.
But there was an hour in my life where I was like, I can't do this.
An hour?
And maybe a half hour of watching MSNBC or CNN. And I was like, oh, you got this, big man. You got this. I'll give you another one. These are they're so wonderful. And did you hear the one with they're just having a good time watching the cars burn? This is a great one.
The Waymos?
But the way he characterizes it is so wonderful. So here is Mark Brown. You don't know him, but he's at KABC in LA, which is a huge station, 52.
Large group of people. It could turn very volatile if you move law enforcement in there in the wrong way and turn what is just a bunch of people having fun watching cars burn into a massive confrontation and altercation between officers and demonstrators.
I mean, we remember all the Waymos that burned after the Dodgers won the World Series.
But it's so funny because he's like, it's just a bunch of people having fun watching cars burn. You know, guys, if you're listening around the country, Father's Day is Sunday. If you're looking to show Dad a good time, maybe
just go find a car.
Dump a little bit of gasoline on the old family sedan.
Your own. Maybe a cop car.
Yeah, by the way, I, like you, was not aware of Waymo's aggressive border position before this week. That self-driving car,
just sweet robots,
lit on fire. They didn't care.
Yeah,
up in flames.
I know.
And what's funny is like Gavin Newsome. We're talking to comedian Danny Polishchuk, best of the best. DannyJokes.com.
Yeah, Danny Jokes, DannyComedy.com, and you can find me everywhere. Danny Jokes.
Danny, find him everywhere. Danny Jokes. And this is important. Like Newsom is obviously he's trying to manufacture a resistance moment out of this because obviously he had a little bit of a downhill spiral post wildfire.
Sure.
He's actually let his city burn 3 times now.
Guy's untouchable, by the way.
It is fascinating.
It is
California.
amazing.
He could be the nominee right now.
Yeah.
What's crazy about him is he did not have the balls to primary Biden. Like if you want to be president, you want the top job. You know in like Godfather 2?
Sure.
Young, the young Corleone, they show you him over in Italy and he has to kill Don Fanucci and become the Don.
Yeah.
Gavin Newsom, all he had to do was primary Biden. And a young, good-looking guy, as much as we all think California sucks, he's good at what he does as a politician.
Oh, he's great.
And he could have gave the Democrats somebody to rally around. But he did the traditional politics, wait your turn, this is what the donors want, which tells you at the end of the day, he's just deferential to the donors.
Yeah, and they actually run things.
Yeah, in that party?
The DNC?
Dude, they kicked out David Hogg because he's white.
Yeah, literally because Steven Spielberg sent down the message where it's just like, we're not doing this.
Yeah, we don't. I know we just voted for him, but democracy's on the ballot again. What do you mean? Well, we just voted.
Constantly on the ballot.
We're voting again. That's how it works. It's the end of the movie Escape from Alcatraz. The end of Escape from Alcatraz, when they're on the shore with the suit with the warden.
Yeah.
And the reporter's writing, and he goes, I think they might have survived. And the warden looks at him and goes, they drowned.
Right.
And he goes, no, but look, he goes, they drowned. And the guy just starts writing the they drowned article. That's how it works in the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
We just voted for David Hogg. We're re-voting.
Yeah,
but
he
re-voting.
lost.
Yeah.
He lost.
Danny Polishchuk in studio. It's just a couple of people having fun watching cars burn.
Good time, yeah.
But you want to know something? I refuse in my inaugural week on the air at 710 WOR to not let New York get a foot in the door here.
No.
Al Roker, who was on Fox News Saturday Night once, that might shock your conscience.
Oh,
and he had a good line. We were at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. I interviewed him, Lester Holt, and Savannah Guthrie on the red carpet. That's how you wind up with people like that on your show.
Sure.
Could you book them to come on? No.
Yeah.
Would they be allowed? No. But in a mixed media setting, they play nice in the sandbox.
Yeah.
So, and Al Roker, to his credit, had a good line that night. Not tonight, but that night. So my approach to them was rival networks, one thing in common, open bar. And they're like, what are you drinking? Here we go, friendly. And I said, all I need you guys to do is say hello to Fox. And Al, to his credit, Al Roker goes, we're like Fox and Friends. Get it? Ha-ha. Laugh. Out the door. Right. You win, Al Roker.
Yeah.
Okay,
Quick
but
singer out the
that
door.
being said, it's a long season, Danny. Nobody goes undefeated. Here's Al Roker. This is my favorite thing in the world. Happened right here in New York City. Proud moment for all of us, okay? He's on the Today Show. And he says, everybody's been wondering why our spring and our early summer have been so cold.
Yeah.
And he says, it turns out it's so cold because of global warming. It's so hot, it's cold. Are you ready for this?
All right.
Everybody take a whiff of the passerby weed if you're in New York. If you're around the country, pull out your actual weed and take a hit right now. Clip 53.
Yesterday, I heard you guys talking when we were talking about all this cold air, and you said, well, if the planet's warming, how come it's so cold? So we thought we would answer that for you. So Arctic air is contained by this polar vortex. It keeps it up there in the Arctic. However, as the planet is warming, climate change has actually caused significant warming up into the Arctic. So as that warm air comes up into the Arctic, that weakens the polar vortex, that boundary, and it allows that cold air to move south. And that is why climate change, global planet warming, actually allows some parts of the country to be colder than usual.
He is so full of shit, this guy.
It's 85 degrees outside.
That's so good, though. No, my man, you don't understand.
Also, we're not worried about climate change anymore. Greta's on to Gaza.
We've moved that on. Greta's
like,
at Gaza.
the fact that she was like, hey, climate change is not important anymore. Yeah. Gaza's the most important thing. Like, I was under the impression that climate change was the biggest risk to every person on Earth. And she goes, no, there's 3 million people that's more important. And you go, fine.
All right.
But then climate change is not important.
Not important. But you want
Done deal. Deal.
Trump, the most significant news of the day, for all the talk about politics and everything else, really is Trump killing the EV mandate in California because other states wanted to follow suit. And now they won't feel that pressure because the auto industry is responding favorably to it because the market isn't there. It's not that people don't like electric cars, but there's a bigger market for hybrids than electric.
Sure.
And the infrastructure doesn't exist to charge all the electric cars. So the big three automakers are thrilled.
Absolutely.
Because and again, everybody tries to call Trump authoritarian, but Trump just got on TV and said the government can't tell you what to drive. Yeah. Which is the opposite of an authoritarian.
He also said that he just truthed out recently, like earlier today, where something along the lines of like he's hearing from all these farmers that they're losing all these employees, like essentially like illegals who are just like non-criminal illegals. And he's like, well, we'll take care of it.
How about that?
Yeah.
See?
He goes, don't worry about it.
He's amenable.
Yeah.
Amenable. I don't get it all right. I'm talking to comedian Danny Polishchuk. We're having a nice time.
Yeah,
don't go anywhere. We're back after this. Now, in this hour, we're going to talk about another form of entertainment because late night comedy continues to fail America. Okay? You got all of these bad, activists masquerading as comedians. Jimmy Kimmel, who, if you remember, famously cried after Donald Trump won the election.
That was embarrassing.
Yo, he did the opposite of our job. As comedians, when you're on stage, when you're hosting a late night show, you have one obligation to the audience. It's to make them laugh. It is a one emotion gig. He did the opposite of that emotion. He cried. He did the opposite of joy. Imagine you went to a strip club and every time they played another song, the dancer put on a new layer of clothing. You'd be sitting there in your seat like,
what in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here?
Wait a minute. She's a reverse stripper. They're supposed to be coming off, not going back on. Jimmy Kimmel, a reverse stripper. Okay, Seth Meyers, Stephen Colbert. Do you remember when Stephen Colbert, literally executed? It was like one of those old horrific ISIS beheading videos. Stephen Colbert killed late night when he did the vaccine dance. Do you remember that? When he got out there, surrounded by all the Pfizer needles and did his little shimmy. And
that was absolutely dreadful.
Probably the worst thing I've ever watched. Jimmy Kimmel obviously set back comedy quite a bit just the same by being an activist masquerading as a comedian. But one of the reasons he was doing that is it was a protection racket. Jimmy Kimmel wore so much blackface during his time on The Man Show that if he doesn't pay protection to progressive ideology every time he gets in front of a camera, his career is over. They're going to cancel him for what he did. So I get what he's doing. He's just literally paying cancel culture protection to the outrage mob, and that's fine. Okay, Colbert, awful. Seth Meyers. I'm like, how does Seth Meyers have a show? Have any of you even watched Seth Meyers? Like, really think about that. You've read so much about how, like, Gutfeld came along and he's the king of late night and he's beaten all these other late night shows who had a 30, 40-year head start. And it's true. They created an opening. They created a market for late night debauchery because they were emphasizing everything but what late night was known for. Joining us now is a guy who says Trump's Hitler. And when we come back, It's a guy who says Trump is Mussolini. But don't go anywhere because Trump might really be Stalin and our musical guest will say so at the end of their song. And it became predictable. Comedy is like a trap door. Jokes work on you when you don't see them opening underneath your feet, when you don't see the trap door opening and you fall down the chute. You know what I'm saying? That's one of those things I've learned over the years. Okay, is when you're telling jokes on stage, if they know where this is going every single time, they eventually stop laughing. There's nobody laughing at Colbert unless they're getting jabbed with a cattle prod and they're holding up the red applause sign and they're going, go ahead and clap for this because he said Trump's going to ban democracy. Okay, and it's terrible. And it's failing the country because late night used to be common culture. It was a place for us to put our political differences aside. You know, you tune in at the end of the day to watch Johnny Carson read silly headlines or do Karnak or whatever wacky routine they had dreamt up that particular night. Rickles was going to go on a tangent. The only thing I know for sure is they'd all be smoking cigarettes. When you watch old episodes of The Tonight Show, I fall asleep to it every night. I watch the Johnny Carson Tonight Show. It's amazing how many cigarettes are being smoked. You're like, it's so jarring. Like, I can't smoke cigarettes in a bar or a restaurant. These guys are on a TV set just banging away. I mean, and that was a different era. When you talk about the world being tougher, when I was a kid, you could smoke on planes. I say that to Lincoln all the time. I'm like, your generation isn't allowed to bring water onto a plane. My generation was allowed to bring fire onto a plane. Really think about it. It's insane. And it might have been for the better that we got rid of it. But the point is, modern late night is no longer common culture. It's not a place everyone goes to put their political differences aside. It's now a place everyone goes to be reminded of them, and hopefully they get to do some laughing along the way. My show's no different, okay? Fox News Saturday Night, it is absolutely a State of the Union week in review in the A block every single week. This is the big box stories we all talked about. Here's my jokey take on them when we come back. But what we try to do on our show that I think is a little bit different than everything out there is obviously we spend a lot of time killing both sides. You know how many jokes we've made about Trump talking like a redneck? You know, tell you what we need to do is build a wall, make Mexico pay for the gosh dang thing. You know, we say that all the time. We tell so many, everything's computer in there, Elon. I never saw nothing like it. I always tell you that. Trump is such a salesman that he rides around in the most sophisticated automobile in the world, the Beast. Yet he gets inside a Tesla and talks about it like he's an Amish guy going to Best Buy. What in the hell's going on in here? And it's fascinating. We spend a lot of time hitting both sides because I come from a comedic background that aims to do that takes pride in doing that because you don't want to be conflated with an activist. And what we try to do on my show, if you're watching it week in, week out, think about what we do after the monologue. Last week, we played Steakhouse or Gay Bar. It was a trivia game. I'm going to read you the name of an establishment. You tell me if it's a steakhouse or it's a gay bar. Ironwood in Sioux Falls. Is it a steakhouse or a gay bar? Now, to be clear, Ironwood sounds like a gas station Viagra. Okay, but it's a steakhouse, and it's a fine steakhouse. I've actually been there, but the point is that's how the game works. That is not political. Jenny Failla came on last week. We did a participation trophy segment where we just showed her dopey things that happened on the internet, decided which was the worst one, and gave them the participation trophy. Really goofy. I actually want to do participation trophies on this show. We used to do it when we launched back in the day. We may do it. Throw a sponsor in there and have some fun. Okay, and then we did our last call segment where we highlighted the bar. What did all three of those things have in common? They had nothing to do with politics. Okay, common culture. One of the reasons I hoot and holler about stay in your lane is nothing has gotten better in this world since athletes got involved with politics, since Hollywood has gotten involved with politics, since models, since stores. Do you remember when they canceled Aunt Jemima because they pretended the pancakes were racist? Did that do anything whatsoever to improve the quality of life in the black community? No, but it turned pancakes into a battleground. Who the hell wants to fight over pancakes? Yo, you're in luck. You got pancakes. I mean, really? Does your life get any better than when you're eating pancakes? Now we need to decide the pancake lady's racist, and then they whacked Mrs. Butterworth? No, it turns cold sources of joy into hunting grounds for grievance. That was the crux behind my New York Times bestselling book, Cancel Culture Dictionary. We started policing sources of joy for sources of grievance. Hey, is this movie diverse enough? Who cares? Is it a good movie or a bad movie? Hey, is this comic punching up or punching down? Who cares? Are you laughing or not? Jokes are supposed to be treated like a buffet. You see a joke you like, you throw it on the tray. You don't like the item, you don't need to throw it on your tray. You just keep walking. No need to argue. Everybody gets their own tray. They'll put what they want on it. That's how comedy's supposed to be treated. But in the era of cancel culture and weaponized comedy in the form of activism, the guys like Jimmy Kimmel and Seth Meyers and Stephen Colbert started getting on TV to tell you what was wrong with society instead of what was funny about it. And that's where they failed America. They turned common culture, something where we could put our differences aside and enjoy, into a battleground. Like, they absolutely failed America. And I'm not trying to tell you, I don't want to take myself too seriously. I mean, you know, I went to community college. I spent most of my adult life driving a cab. But it's the absolute one thing I try so hard to do every Saturday night on my TV show is make it watchable for everybody. And that's why we always say the same thing we say on the radio show. Hey, you're all welcome here. Be a Republican, be a Democrat, don't be a... Okay, but now we're living in a comedy show where not only are the hosts telling you not to be a... but the hosts are a bunch of... That is the reality with somebody like Kimmel or Seth Meyers.
He's a lousy dad, but he's right.
Here's Seth Meyers telling you Donald Trump and Stephen Miller are going full authoritarian out in Los Angeles. And I just want you to hear this. Nobody's watching Seth Meyers. But as a guy who hosts one of these shows, I want to give you some insight into everything wrong with the left's argument and the idea of making comics the vessel for which they advance it. Here is Seth Meyers, clip 23.
Miller wants terrifying mass immigration raids everywhere. Regardless of whether the targets are people with criminal records or 4-year-olds, he's a rabid authoritarian who wants to create the feeling that nowhere is safe, from courthouses to 7-Elevens. No, let's never forget. Let's never forget how the Trump administration bullies. They do it to provoke a response that retroactively excuses their bullying. They did this on purpose. It was not a misstep by Trump. This was a misstep by Trump. ICE didn't come to LA to stop people who were setting cars on fire. They came to rip families apart in an act of political theater, and we can't forget that. They want escalation. They want spectacle because their barbaric immigration raids are wildly unpopular. So they're resorting to authoritarian crackdowns on protests.
I mean...
Oh, shut up, woman.
Seriously, though. My goodness gracious. Really, just so embarrassing. Okay, here's the problem with advancing your politics through comedians. Are you ready for it? They got to be funny. Is Seth Meyers considered funny by anybody? No, that is straight up activism. And when the activism is based on a lie, Trump didn't come to Los Angeles with the National Guard to stop the fires. He came to rip families apart in an act of political theater.
You can't handle the truth.
Who are these families being ripped apart? Can anybody tell me? If you broke the law, guys, if you broke the law, okay, if you murdered somebody, you robbed somebody, pushed them in front of a train. I mean, if you did that here in New York City, you have nothing to worry about. You're probably not going to jail because of Alvin Bragg and these woke bail reforms.
Everything woke turns to...
But anywhere else in the country, if you break the law, you are separated from your family. They don't throw them all in jail together. And this idea that Seth Meyers is out there arguing that they came here to rip families apart. No, they're deporting murderers and rapists. And yes, they showed up to put the fires out. Understand this and don't ever forget it. Donald Trump didn't send anybody into town till day 3. What happened day 1, day 2, and day 3? They broke stuff and they set it on fire.
Bingo.
That's how he got there. And this whole fallacy of they bully, so when you react, they can retroactively create a context that justifies. Like, it's really dope. I understand people enjoy legalized weed. But this man is supposed to be a comedian.
You gotta do better than that.
And that's where I tell you late night comedy is failing America. Like, dude, go back to doing wacky Florida man stuff. Because if this is the angle, like, it needs to be funny, and it isn't. That's why we're winning at Fox. Like, Gutfeld is killing these guys on the weeknights, and we are killing these guys on the weekends. My weekend show outrates their weeknight shows. And on the weeknights, understand, there's like 70% more TVs on than there are at 10 o'clock on a Saturday night. Like, these guys are terrible. And they're on network, and they have a huge lead. But they're giving people the opposite of what they tuned in for. Imagine that. Imagine you got in the car this Father's Day weekend, and you're like, yeah, we're going to take Dad to Red Lobster. Then you drove through town, found a parking space, walked into Red Lobster. And they were like, yeah, we don't serve seafood here. And you're like, wait, what? That's what late night comedy has become. You are now being invited to a fishless Red Lobster. And that's the reality that late night comedy is presenting its customers with every day in the modern era of activism masquerading as comedy. It's embarrassing to me.